Isuzu pointed a musket at Saya and asked if he would come with her to an amusement park that weekend. Saya responded by asking if that meant Isuzu was asking him out on a date and why she was pointing a musket at him. Isuzu aimed the musket at him to make sure he wouldn't escape. Saya asked if she would kill him if he refused, and Isuzu confirmed that she would if he turned her down. Saya tried to calm her down, but Isuzu fired a shot next to his head, scaring him. She then pointed the musket directly at his forehead and demanded his answer immediately. That day was the day Saya and Isuzu were going on a date. Saya arrived at the meeting spot first. He was feeling confident, knowing he was handsome and intelligent. He was well aware of his good looks and academic excellence at school, which made him understand why a transfer student like Isuzu, who had never even spoken to him before, would want to ask him out. When Isuzu arrived, Saya was surprised. They waited for the bus together, and he asked where exactly they were going. Isuzu told him they were heading to Amaburi or Amagi Brilliant Park, and they would take the bus from the stop where they met. Saya decided to go home, but Isuzu immediately pointed the musket at his face. If he left, she would kill him. Saya then asked why they had to go to that amusement park. Isuzu clarified that it was more of a theme park. Saya was confused as to why she wanted to go to such a rundown park, especially since she had just transferred. Why was she so insistent on bringing him along? He knew he was handsome, but he was sure there was another reason. He had many other questions, but the bus arrived and they got on. Isuzu asked if Saya had ever been to Amagi Brilliant Park. Saya replied that he had gone there when he was a kid and thought it was somewhat interesting. The next stop was Amagi Brilliant Park's bus stop, and Saya was about to get off, but Isuzu stopped him and told him they would be getting off at the next stop instead. Saya asked if the castle they just passed wasn't the park's entrance. Isuzu explained that it was actually a love hotel, shocking Saya. She told him that the main entrance used to be there, but the park had been relocated during renovations 10 years ago, and a castle had been built near the park's main bus stop. Saya wondered why they didn't just rename the bus stop instead. Isuzu explained that a request had been made some time ago, but for various reasons, many guests still got off at the wrong stop. In some theme parks, visitors are referred to as guests, while staff members are called performers. Saya commented that Isuzu had an oddly specific knowledge of these things. When they arrived at Tamari's bus stop, they got off. Isuzu immediately urged Saya to enter the park. The amusement park looked a bit run down and was eerily empty. They only saw 3 visitors there on a Sunday. Isuzu mentioned that on holidays about 2,110 guests usually came. Isuzu then took Saya to Sorcerer's Hill, one of the areas of Amagi Brilliant Park. It was part of the fairy tale Dreamland, where the magical mascots of Maple Land lived. Saya said it didn't exactly sound like a dream. They visited Terami's flower adventure, and Isuzu explained that Terami was a flower fairy. There, they could experience a journey into a world of love and joy with the healing train. But to Saya, the place didn't sound healing at all. They boarded the small train together. Just as it started moving, the train suddenly swayed. Isuzu noted that the track seemed misaligned, making it dangerous. Along the way, they passed by moving toy flowers that looked old and worn out. The row of toy flowers greeted them as they passed, and Saya questioned what kind of place this was. Isuzu explained that Teremi was supposed to make an appearance there, but it seemed he was no longer around. Saya then asked how often Isuzu visited that place. After the train stopped, Isuzu asked if Saya liked it, but he just said that he felt nauseous. Next, they went to Makaram Music Theater. Isuzu explained that Makaram was the music fairy, and the beautiful music and rhythm he played could melt hearts, filling anyone who listened with happiness. Saya said it didn't sound happy at all. Unfortunately, the theater was closed that day, and Isuzu mentioned that Makaram took a break whenever he lacked inspiration, calling him a true artist. Next, they visited Malful Okashi House. Isuzu explained that Malful was the candy fairy and also the main mascot of Amagi Brilliant Park. She said that eating his sweets could fill someone with hope and dreams, but Saya didn't believe it at all. They went inside, where the attraction involved shooting at mechanical rats with a magic water gun. Saya boasted that he was great at shooting games and that his reflexes would surely surprise Isuzu. They started the game and Saya tried to shoot the rats, but they moved incredibly fast. After a while, he managed to hit one. Then they entered the food storage area, where there were even more rats, making it harder for Saya to hit them. He admitted that the game was surprisingly challenging. When the game ended, Saya had only managed to shoot 13 rats. He called the game worse than a broken one. Unfortunately, he hadn't shot enough rats to win a good prize. Isuzu explained that the more rats he shot, the better the reward. Saya called her thinking devious and asked her not to talk about killing in a family-oriented setting because it was disturbing. After that, they went to a spot where visitors could take photos with Malful. Saya wasn't very interested in taking a picture with a costume character. But Isuzu insisted, saying she was sure he would enjoy it. Saya was skeptical that anyone could enjoy something like that. Isuzu assured him that plenty of people did, as seen from the photos of guests who had achieved high scores in the park's games. Saya remarked that those customers were quite determined. Malful soon approached them. Saya noticed that Malful's gaze was intense, making him feel uneasy. Isuzu told Malful that she and Saya wanted a photo. Malful took the picture and Saya asked why Malful didn't join in. Instead of answering, Malful spat on the ground in front of Saya. Annoyed, Saya reminded Malful that he and Isuzu were guests. Isuzu told him to stay calm. Saya said he wouldn't complain but found the situation incredibly frustrating and didn't want to waste time with such a low-quality mascot. Hearing this, Malful immediately threw the camera at Saya's head. Isuzu explained that Malful didn't like being called low quality. Saya said that Malful's stance looked like he was challenging him to a fight. Malful then punched Saya, knocking him down. Saya was about to fight back, but Isuzu quickly shot both of them. Saya couldn't believe that Isuzu actually shot him. He thought he was going to die, but the bullet didn't pierce him. Isuzu warned them that if they continued fighting, she would really kill them. She told them not to stain the House of Hope and Dreams with their blood. Saya was annoyed and said that Isuzu had no right to say that. Isuzu hoped that Malful and Saya would get along after the fight. However, both of them refused. Saya was surprised that Malful could talk. Isuzu then told Saya they should leave since they had already gotten a good photo, the one taken while they were fighting. Saya and Isuzu continued walking to another attraction. Saya called Malful nothing more than a thug in a mouse hat, convinced that there had to be some kind of delinquent inside the costume. However, Isuzu insisted that there was no person inside, explaining that Malful came from Magic Island. Saya didn't believe her, but she remained firm in her claim. They then headed to an indoor theater called Elementario, where the 4 fairies were set to perform. Isuzu explained that their dance moves were flawless, and that the main event of the show was the performance of the Goddess of Light. The 4 fairies were Muse, the Water Fairy, Sylphie, the Wind Fairy, Kobori, the Earth Fairy, and Salama, the Fire Fairy. They greeted the audience cheerfully, but unfortunately there were only 4 people in attendance. Saya couldn't even bring himself to watch, feeling too bad for them. Isuzu then decided to take Saya to another attraction. Next, they went to the Doki Doki Coaster, a high-speed roller coaster designed to bring an exhilarating sense of happiness. Isuzu asked if Saya was scared to try it, but Saya confidently stated that he wasn't. They got on the ride, and it turned out they were the only ones riding it. When it was over, Saya felt absolutely nothing. They quickly moved on to their next stop, the Brilliant Market. Isuzu told him that the market sold all the latest Amagi Brilliant Park merchandise, but to Saya, everything looked outdated. After that, they went to Squirrel Grand Park. Isuzu described it as an open space filled with the smiles of children, but in reality, the only ones there were 3 elderly men relaxing on benches. Then they tried the free fall ride. The speed had been adjusted to make it safe for kids, but in reality, the ride had become unbearably slow. Afterward, they went on the coffee cup ride, which was supposed to be thrilling due to its speed and spinning sensation. As they rode it, the spinning made Saya hungry. After wandering around for a while, they sat down to have some snacks. Saya expressed his frustration, saying that everything about the park was awful. He was clearly irritated, feeling that the park had no real appeal. The service was terrible, the facilities were horrifying, and even the Love Hotel next door looked better in comparison. To make things worse, the amusement park didn't even seem to understand what entertainment truly was. Saya was convinced that the park's management only thought about tricking children. However, in his opinion, deceiving kids wasn't that simple. It wasn't something that could be done half-heartedly. It required a strong determination and unwavering belief, and this place had none of that. He firmly believed that if they truly wanted to create dreams for people, they had to believe in those dreams themselves first. Isuzu admitted that while Saya's words were harsh, they weren't entirely wrong. It was rare for a high school student to say something like that. Saya clarified that the statement wasn't originally his, it was something he had read in a book. Isuzu then realized that Saya was feeling frustrated after being forced to accompany a crazy girl around an amusement park all day. Saya bluntly told her that she should at least acknowledge how much of a bother she had been. However, Isuzu found Saya's frustration strange as he seemed to be more upset about the park than anything else. Suddenly, Isuzu opened a book and started reading it. She mentions Saya's name, class, and age. She also stated that Saya lived with an aunt from a distant relative, and that he was handsome, smart, athletic, talented, quick-witted, and persistent in everything he did. However, he was also extremely narcissistic and proudly rejected anyone's love, which was why he had neither friends nor a girlfriend. Isuzu even pointed out that Seiya didn't have anyone to eat lunch with, so he ate in the bathroom instead. Seiya was furious and tried to snatch the book from her, demanding to know why she knew so much about him. Isuzu replied that she had done extensive research. Seiya then questioned why she had investigated him in the first place. Isuzu mentioned the name Kodama Seiya, who was once known as a talented child actor, one of the few children that every parent could be proud of, but his career had come to a halt 5 years ago. Given the state of the amusement park, Isuzu was curious to see how he would react. Seiya realized that Isuzu had brought him to the amusement park because she knew everything about him. He didn't know what she wanted from him, but the Kodama Seiya she spoke of had been dead for a long time. If Isuzu was hoping to use a washed-up child actor for her own benefit, she was wasting her time. Seiya decided he had had enough and wanted to leave. He didn't even care if Isuzu pointed her gun at him again. But before he could go, Isuzu stopped him and insisted that he eat the croquette she had bought for him. Seiya refused, but Isuzu forced him to take a bite. Reluctantly, he ate it, and to his surprise, it was delicious. Without realizing it, he finished the entire thing. Isuzu then told him that the croquette was made right there in the park, and that he wouldn't find that level of deliciousness anywhere else. Seiya asked if Isuzu had made it herself, but she told him that someone else had. She then suggested that he meet the person who made it before leaving. They made their way to Maple Castle, entered the building, and headed to the rooftop to meet the amusement park's manager. When they arrived, Seiya saw a girl who seemed oddly familiar to him. Isuzu urged him to go and speak with her. Seiya approached, and the girl asked if he was really Seiya. She then introduced herself as Furlanza Latifa, the manager of the amusement park. Latifa thanked Seiya for taking the time to visit the park. Latifa then poured Seiya a drink, and he asked if she was the one who had made the croquette. Latifa explained that she made croquettes every day, hoping they would bring happiness to the park's visitors. Seiya admitted that he had no idea what was going on and asked her what she wanted from him. Latifa then asked whether he had enjoyed Amagi Brilliant Park and what he thought about it. Seiya said the whole experience had frustrated him, and he didn't even know how to describe it. Latifa understood that Seiya might not be happy with what he had seen. She then made a request. Since the park was on the brink of collapse, she wanted Seiya to restore it to its former glory. Latifa asked him to become the new manager of Amagi Brilliant Park because, according to their prophecy, Seiya was the one who could save it. She explained that the prophecy was given by a god and that everyone working in the park was from a magical realm called Maple Land. They had traveled to Earth using magic, and all the employees of the amusement park were residents of Maple Land. If they failed to attract 250,000 visitors within the next 3 months, the park would be shut down. If that happened, the people of Maple Land would lose both their home and their very existence. Seiya refused to be involved in something as absurd as a real-life magical realm. Latifa admitted that it was hard to believe, but to prove it, she would grant Seiya a magical power. She suddenly kissed him on the lips. Seiya was shocked, and his mind was instantly flooded with memories of his past with Latifa. Moments later, he lost consciousness. That morning, Seiya woke up in his bed, still holding his lips as he recalled the kiss. He immediately went to the bathroom to wash his face, but as soon as he opened the door, he was shocked to see Isuzu changing clothes. In a panic, Seiya quickly shut the door and started banging on Isuzu's door, demanding to know why Isuzu was in the bathroom. Isuzu explained that last night, Isuzu had brought Seiya back while he was unconscious. Since there were no more trains running late at night, Isuzu had invited her to stay over. In her thoughts, Isuzu couldn't believe that Seiya had finally given in and gone on a date, considering how he used to treat all women as his enemies. To her surprise, Seiya could hear her thoughts. He immediately asked Isuzu if she had just said something strange about him giving in or something like that. Isuzu was startled and confused by what Seiya was talking about. Seiya then explained that she had said a lot of things without actually speaking out loud. Isuzu Silgravi simply replied that she was still sleepy and wanted to go back to bed. Without another word, she shut her door again. Isuzu then approached Seiya and told him that he had now received the magic. She then asked if he finally believed her. That morning, Seiya and Isuzu left for school together, waiting for the bus at the stop. Seiya realized he could hear the thoughts of the people around him. Just as he was about to confirm something someone was thinking, Isuzu stopped him. She asked if Seiya believed her now. After all, the Maple Land royal family could grant magic through a kiss. Seiya then recalled that Latifa was actually a princess, and it seemed the power he had received allowed him to read people's minds. Isuzu told him to try reading her thoughts. When he did, he heard her thinking about records left by someone who had possessed this power in the past. However, the ability could only be used once per person. Seiya quickly realized that meant he would never be able to read Isuzu's mind again. He wondered if she had tricked him or if she just didn't want him to know what she was thinking. When he asked why he had been given this power, Isuzu told him it was to convince him to accept the job as the park's manager. She also mentioned that they would be returning to the amusement park after school. Seiya wanted to refuse, but Isuzu immediately pointed her gun at him. Meanwhile, Mawful visited Latifa. She immediately hugged him. Mawful apologized for failing the previous day, but Latifa reassured him that it was okay. He then asked if she had met Seiya yet. Latifa explained that Seiya had fainted when she bestowed the magic upon him, so she had asked Isuzu to watch over him. Mawful grumbled, hoping that Seiya and Isuzu wouldn't do anything improper together. Latifa was confused by his words, but Mawful told her that she would understand when she grew up. He also apologized for his carelessness in the past. Latifa admitted that it seemed unlikely they would succeed this year, but she remained hopeful that one day their dream would come true. She believed that things would change if Seiya joined them. That same day, Mekaran and Tirami were entertaining children at the park. The kids were laughing and playing, kicking and punching them playfully. But as soon as the children left, Tirami became furious, saying he wanted to kill those kids. Mekaran calmed him down, reminding him that if they let their emotions get the best of them, they wouldn't be able to work at the park anymore. Unable to contain his anger, Tirami started punching Mekaran instead. The two got into a fight until Mawful stepped in to break it up. Tirami asked why Mawful seemed so upset. Mawful admitted that he was annoyed by the guy Isuzu had brought yesterday. Just thinking about Seiya made him sick. At that moment, the fairies approached them. Muse, the water fairy, greeted them with her usual sweetness. Kobri, the earth fairy, had her graceful aura. Salama, the fire fairy, maintained her cool and distant demeanor. And Sylphie, the wind fairy, was as cheerful as ever. Makaran asked if they were heading to Elementario, and it turned out that it was their debut performance that day. Mawful was frustrated that everyone was relying on Seiya, considering it an insult to them all. Meanwhile, Seiya and Isuzu were on the bus heading to Amagi Brilliant Park. Seiya had some questions for Isuzu, starting with what exactly Maple Land was. Isuzu explained that Maple Land was a magical realm that existed between land and sea, and that Latifa was its first princess. Seiya remembered that Latifa had said something strange to him yesterday about losing the meaning of life. Isuzu explained that she was talking about animus, a crystallized form of joy generated by the guests visiting the park. Animus was the energy that sustained their lives. The amusement park itself functioned as a facility to collect animus, which they referred to as an argels. Seiya finally understood that their very existence depended on the amusement park. Seiya mentioned that Urayasu's Dejimalin and Highlander Fujiming were also argels. He then asked if Maple Land was responsible for creating all of them, but it turned out that wasn't the case. There were actually many magical realms in that world. Isuzu explained that each of them built their own argels independently, and if a magical realm lost its power due to a lack of animus, it would fade away. That was why they were desperate to attract visitors. Seiya then asked what would happen if their power completely disappeared. Isuzu answered that their lives would come to an end. When they arrived at the park, a man wearing a red mask greeted Isuzu. Seiya immediately asked if that man was also a resident of Maple Land. Isuzu explained that he was just a regular human and that he wasn't the only one. Many ordinary people worked there. As they walked, they passed the staff dormitory where Isuzu lived. Isuzu then led Seiya to the administration office. Just as they entered the building, they ran into Mawful. Mawful shot a sharp glare at Seiya, and instinctively, Seiya took a defensive stance. Seeing this, Isuzu asked what Seiya was doing. Seiya explained that it was just his reflex. Before long, Mawful and Seiya ended up fighting, and Mawful easily defeated him. Isuzu then asked if Seiya was on good terms with Mawful now and urged him to move along quickly. She wanted to take him to meet their adversary in the conference room. Seiya and Isuzu met Kurisu Takaya from the Amagi Development Center. Isuzu introduced Seiya as an intern staff member. She explained that Latifa couldn't attend the meeting due to health reasons, so she would be taking her place as manager. Takaya then explained the terms of their contract, specifically regarding the visitor count calculation at the beginning of August each year. If Amagi Brilliant Park failed to reach 500,000 visitors for 5 consecutive years, ownership of the park would be transferred to the Amagi Development Center. Amagi Brilliant Park had already failed to meet this number for the past 4 years, making this their last chance. At that moment, their visitor count was around 250,000, and since it was only the first week of May, that meant they had only 3 months left. However, based on their observations, the Amagi Brilliant Park staff had not made any preparations for the deadline. Isuzu admitted that they weren't confident they could reach 500,000 visitors, but with the summer holidays approaching, they had hope. Takaya pointed out that summer vacation wouldn't start until mid-July and 2 weeks wouldn't be enough time to make a difference. From his perspective, the amusement park was running a massive loss, and he was convinced they should start packing up as soon as possible. Takaya then presented an example. If a family of 4 visited Amagi Brilliant Park, based on last year's visitor data, he calculated how much money that family would need to spend in one day to keep the park's staff financially afloat. Saya immediately responded, 85,000 yen. Takaya was surprised by his answer, saying it was very close. The actual number was 83,200 yen. Impressed by Saya's quick thinking, Takaya then asked if he would be interested in working at the Amagi Development Center. Saya immediately declined. Takaya firmly stated that their company had no obligation to continue funding the amusement park. Isuzu pleaded for one last chance to turn things around. Takaya scoffed and told them they might as well hope for 250,000 fools willing to visit the park. After the people from Amagi Development left, Isuzu told Saya that she had been managing the amusement park in Latifa's place for a year. She then asked how Saya knew the amount was 85,000 yen and whether he had read Takaya's mind. It turned out that Saya had just estimated based on the park's crowd and size the previous day, calling it a mental game or a Fermi problem. Saya then asked why Isuzu wanted him to meet those people. Isuzu admitted she wanted to introduce him to their enemies because he was going to be a manager. Saya was frustrated that Isuzu had stolen his free time and vacation, shot him with a strange weapon, and then forced him to help her.